Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the MMA Show, where talk about anything and everything UFC related, fighting, boxing, pretty much anything that involves two people beating the shit out of each other. I talk about here, but mainly UFC and MMA, hence the name. If you're a brand new listener, well, thank you for stumbling onto my channel. I appreciate you for checking it out. I hope you enjoyed the content. And if you are a recurring listener, well, thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate all of you. I thank you to all of you. Really, I couldn't stress that enough. I'm grateful for you guys that listen the videos and the podcast. So, coming off of a really, really good fight night Saturday. I was very surprised with this fight night, man. I wish almost every fight night was like this. Not necessarily like, name-wise, like, because we had some good, well-known names, but just the finishes, man. Almost every fight was a finish. Submissions, TKOs, I don't know what, for some odd reason, the stars aligned, and we had two back-to-back slam TKOs, which was fucking insane. The prelims were good. The only really fight that I was interested on in the prelims was Miesha Tate, and then I'm not tripping. They had Clay Guida and Silva on the prelims too, but I think they moved them up. If I'm not tripping, if I'm remembering correctly, in the last video that I made, when I was looking at the card, I'm looking at it right now. When I was looking at the card, Clay Guida was below Miesha Tate. It was Miesha Tate and then Clay Guida. But for some reason they changed it. I don't know why. So I'm not tripping. I was watching the fight. I was like, wait, I thought Clay Guida was in the prelims. Anyways, those were the two main fights that interested me on the prelims, and Miesha Tate got the dub. Good for her, man. She's been a little bit of a slippery slope. She came back to the UFC already, fought already like 2-3 times, I think, since she's been back. And unfortunately, she had some losses. She lost against Murphy. She lost against Vieira. And then she got this dub against Avila. So good for her. Good for her. Hopefully she, keeps climbing those ranks and hopefully do something with that. For the main card, started off with Soriano and Stoltzfus. It was a good fight. It was a really, really good fight. It ended up in round 2 submission, by Stoltzfus. Decent fight. I thought Soriano was going to do a little bit more, but, Stoltzfus is a really fucking good grappler, so props to him. Then we have Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. That was an amazing fight. I think that was for sure one of the fights of the night. I don't remember which fight got actually fight of the night, but this one is up there in my book. I mean, this is an amazing fight. Both men hurt each other at some point, but both men were wobbled at some point. Clay Guida, man, is one of those guys that he's an OG, okay? He's been doing it for a while. He's got like a ridiculous record, I think like 50 or 60 fights. He is 38-21. Wow. 38-21. That is insane. And, he's mostly well known. Back in the day, he had long hair. He was like doing the burping. I'm sure you guys been watching the TikToks of him burping in between rounds. Unfortunately, he did not get the dub. He got Silva as the one that got the dub. But it was a good fight, man. Clay Guida, though, he has a chin. I don't know how he survived the first round, by the way. Second half of the first round, he got wobbled. He was in danger. He was absolutely in danger. Joaquim Silva didn't really go for the finish. I mean, he tried, obviously, but maybe he didn't want to gas himself out. But props to Clay Guida. He has a chin on him. Now, at his age, I don't know how good of a thing that is. I don't know if he, should be thinking about some type of, retirement of something. I don't know if he's announced something, but usually he was here in KC for the Kansas City fight night a couple of months ago. Actually, it was back in April, I think, and he won that fight, and he looked good. I was like, holy shit, this dude still looks great. Probably not gonna retire anytime soon, But now that you get back in the the losing bracket, you gotta kind of rethink everything a little bit and kind of reassess things, right? Is he gonna retire soon? Is he thinking about it at all? Is he wants to keep going? He's 41 years old, so he's had an amazing career. He's had an amazing career. Amazing fights earlier in his career. If he were to hang up the towel, that would be okay. I think he's had a great career, super respected athlete and fighter. So I think that. Sorry, let me fix this cable. I think if he retires right now, nobody's gonna be upset at that. I think we will understand. I mean, you put him there versus a young. It was I think a 10 age difference, 10 years gap. I think because Clay Guida's 41, Joaquim Silva is 34. So big gap. Not 10 years, but big gap. But it was a good fight. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was great. I won some money because I bet against Clay. I'm sorry, Clay. But yeah, I put some money on Silva. It just makes sense, bro. It just if you're gonna bet money in fights, you have to make this type of decisions of like, okay, they want to bet on the guy that's older, at the last leg of his career, ton of losses, or do you want to bet against the young, shredded, tatted up Brazilian who is a fucking savage? Records are not nearly as close to each other as we saw earlier with Clay's record. He's like 30-20, and Silva is 13-5. So, also has a lot of good wins under his belt, but he did come off a loss against Armin, which we'll talk about here in a bit. His last fight was against Armin, who lost back in June. So good win for him. Again, be back in the winning bracket. That was a great performance from both of those guys for sure. Props to Clay for surviving and making it all the way to the third round, which I thought was insane. I don't know how he survived the first round. Again, that was an insane fight. After that, we had Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum, another fight that I was excited about because I was interested in Kelvin's career status and where he is currently in his career. Obviously, he had the big loss against Izzy, and ever since then, just hasn't really been consistent as much. A couple wins, couple losses here and there, but he looked okay. He looked good in the fight, and then unfortunately he got submitted in the last round. However, if the fight would have gone to decision, I think Sean Brady would have still taken the dub. And look, it's almost the same scenario as Clay Guida and Joaquin Silva fight. All right, you have a weathered, seasoned veteran who's been there, who's done that, who's fought the who's who of the division, who's fought all the top contenders of the division, and then you put him there against a young, bodied up, shredded savage like Sean Brady, who's an absolute savage. I think Sean Brady for sure in the next 5 years, I think he will be right there in the championship talk. Either maybe get a couple of championship shots or maybe even be champion. You never know. Anything can happen. He's bodied up. He's shredded. He has amazing grappling, as we saw. Submitted Kelvin Gastelum, which is not easy to do. But yeah, he's Kelvin Gastelum, by the way. Amazing submission defense as far as not getting submitted, because he was put in bad positions throughout the fight, and then eventually got submitted in the third. But Sean Brady oftentimes, took him down, took his back. It was a great wrestling fight. I'll say that. If you're a fan of wrestling, pure wrestling, this was amazing because Kelvin oftentimes was in awful positions and was able to get out of it with amazing technique that I myself, I'm not the biggest grappling, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling expert. Obviously I'm not an expert at all in fighting or anything. I'm just a big UFC head, UFC fan. So that's why I do this. But as far as the nitty-gritty technicality of like where you put your hips and shit like that in jiu-jitsu and in grappling, I don't understand it as much. I understand some of it. Obviously, I understand like wrist control and, a lot of like the basic stuff, right? But Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum was a great grappling showcase. Really, Kelvin defended a lot of the stuff from Sean really, really well. But essentially got the dub. So now, there is one thing I wanted to talk about, which was who's next really for Sean Brady. I mean, now we're getting into some of these bigger fights. Now we're getting into, okay, who could be next for these guys? And I think Sean Brady is unranked. If I had to guess, let me double, triple check. Welterweight. He is unranked. I would like for him to fight someone in the top 15. Anyone from the top 10, or anyone from 15 to 10, right? You have Ian Gary, who's already fighting. You have Jack Della Maddalena, who's I think would be a great fight for him. I don't know if he's booked or not. You got Kevin Holland, you got Neil Magny, you got Michael Chiesa. I think if I had to put my money on who's next for Sean Brady, would be Jack. JDM. I think that would be a great fight as far as big-ish names in the come-up, right? A big fight of two guys in the come-up. Popular guys. They're both are big names. Not as big as, someone in the top 5, but, that's why you have those fights of, like, in the top 10 to see who can break into the top 5, right? I think JDM is a great fight. I think Kevin Holland is also an amazing fight. I think he just fought not too long ago. Wait, fuck, hold on. Now that I see, that's what I said, bro. These things are messing me up. He's ranked 9. Never mind. I'm sorry. Sean Brady is ranked 9. Disregard I said. Okay, well, all right. He's already in the top 10. This has not been updated. I think they usually update. They usually update them on Tuesdays. And yeah, as of right now, he's ranked 9. And I think Kelvin Gastelum is he ranked? No, I don't think he is ranked. Because he wasn't at welterweight. Sorry. So Kelvin Gastelum was not ranked in welterweight. He's ranked in middleweight. That's why. Middleweight, he's still ranked 11. As of right now, that might change. But yeah, wow, Sean Brady getting closer and closer. So that 5-year mark that I told you earlier, maybe less. Maybe let's say 2 years. I think 2 years you have Sean Brady fighting someone like a Gilbert Burns or maybe a rematch against Bilal. I think that would be a great opportunity for him. So yeah, that was a great fight. Excited for what those two gentlemen do next. And Kelvin is another one of those guys that, I don't know, is he thinking about, retiring anytime soon? How old is he? He is, oh no, bro, he's young. He's 32 years old. He's 32 years young. He just has to get back into a winning bracket. That's all. He needs to get a couple of wins back to back to back if he wants to be a contender again at welterweight. Unfortunately, you make your debut. I don't know if it was his debut. I don't know if he's fought at welterweight before, but you move divisions and you lose. It's not a good look. Usually, guys move divisions when they're struggling in a division. So if you go to another division and you also struggle there, it's not ideal. Also, maybe it wasn't a great idea to give him Sean Brady, a fucking savage. Maybe someone lower in the rankings, like JDM or like Neil Magny, would have been a much better introduction welterweight fight for Kelvin Gastelum. So, yeah, I think shout out to the guys because it was also a great fight. Also one of the fight of the night's contender in my opinion. So let's see what happens for those two guys. Then we have a really good performance by Davison Figueiredo versus Rob Font. Davison Figueiredo also switching weight classes, going to bantamweight. Who used to be a flyweight. He used to be the flyweight champion, and then moves to bantamweight. So. Impressive performance by Davison. A lot of people thought that maybe he wasn't gonna have the power or the not the energy, but when you move up weight classes and you move up, you have pros and cons. Just like if you move down, right? If you move down, you're usually have an advantage on size, but I think where you obviously the disadvantage is you're cutting weight. You're cutting a lot of weight. And Davison, when he was fighting a flyweight, when he had all those wars against Moreno, he was cutting a ton of weight. I mean, he walks around probably at 160, 170, and he was cutting down all the way to flyweight, which is what, 35, 25, 35? 25. And then, now he's a bantamweight, so he's cutting less weight, still cutting weight, I would imagine. I mean, if he wanted to, he could fucking fight, fucking featherweight, I think. But now you're getting into like, okay, you're smaller. So that's a con of moving up a weight class is you're smaller, especially if you're going against the big guy for the division, right? Rob Font is not a huge guy, but it was definitely a good test for him as far as, okay, going against a seasoned bantamweight contender, someone like Rob Font, who's been there and against some of the best as well. It's interesting. It was interesting to see, right? Because now we had Figueiredo still ranked number 2 as of right now at flyweight, and he defeated Rob Font at bantamweight, who's ranked number 8 as of right now. Again, it's Monday. They usually, after a fight, they update the rankings on Tuesdays. So we won't know exactly where they'll fall on until tomorrow. If I had to guess, I think Davison moves to 8, ranking number 8 in bantamweight. Rob Font obviously maybe drops down to 9 or 10. But yeah, now I think we have some amazing fight opportunities at bantamweight, which is a stacked division. I think it's one of the best stacked divisions in the whole UFC, bantamweight. And now we have another contender in Davison Figueiredo, who, I mean, I would love to see him against someone like Peter Yan, and then eventually someone like Corey Sandhagen or Chito or Sean O'Malley or Sterling Cejudo. That would be an amazing fight too against Figueiredo. He looked good. That's all I gotta say. He looked good. He looked dominant. He didn't look like he was struggling at all as far as weight class. I don't know. I guess one of my buddies says that. One of my buddies said this, but usually if you're a guy that's known for power and you move up, you do not carry the power. I don't think that is the case. Really, I think if you move up, I think you have more power because now you have more muscle, and you also have a better chin. It was a great fight overall. It was a knockout. Like Davison is known for having crazy KO knockout power, and we didn't really get to see that. He did hit Rob Font a lot, really good with some clean shots, but we didn't get to see if he had that power of as far as like his nuclear, like Joe Rogan called it, his nuclear power that he had back when he was at flyweight. He was knocking dudes out unconscious. Props to him for getting a dub at a new weight class. And see, that's the again, comparing it to the last fight, it was a very similar situation, right? Where we had a guy switching weight classes and then going someone against in the top 10 of that weight class. But that guy that's switching weight classes, someone like Kelvin or someone like Davison, they're seasoned, they're weathered. They've been there, they've done that. They fought the who's who of their division. Now they're moving up and testing themselves. You saw in the last fight, it didn't work out as well for Kelvin. And then now you saw with Davison, it did work out for him. So I don't know. You see how there's pros and there's cons, right? Not everyone that moves up is going to lose. Not everyone that moves down is going to win. It's just a matter of skill, obviously, and a good matchup. I think Rob Font was a perfect matchup against Davison. I am worried though if he faces someone like a Sterling or like a Sean O'Malley. Those are big guys. Those are big guys, bro, for bantamweight. So I don't know how Davison's going to do against some of those dudes in the top of the division. But I can only hope for the best. I'm a huge fan of Davison, bro. I obviously when he had all those wars against against Moreno, I was rooting for Moreno because I'm Mexican, and I'm a huge fan of Moreno too. But I always liked Davison. He was a dominant champion at bantamweight. He was great. But he met a really tough opponent in Moreno, and then now he moves up, and now he's back in the winning bracket. So Good for him, bro. Good for him. Next, we had Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green. Wow. First, let me say, what a fucking knockout. Not taking anything away from Jalen Turner, but I think Bobby Green has no chin. I think Bobby Green is another one of those guys that is also seasoned, weathered. He's also been there and done that. You heard me say like way too much times this time. I'm done saying that, I promise. But he's experienced. He's been there with everyone. And he's one of those guys that he gets touched up a lot. And, when I was watching some of his interviews prior to the fight and also in the press conference on the fight or when they do the media day before the fight, they were asking him, okay, like, what's your plan against Jalen? Did you mind you, it was a short notice fight for Jalen, so Bobby Green wasn't supposed to fight Jalen. I don't know who he supposed to fight. I don't know. I don't know who was he supposed to fight. But anyways, Jalen was coming in short notice. And there's something about that, There's something about being fresh for a fight. Obviously, having a camp is good and preparing yourself physically for the fight. But I think at this level, man, if you're in the UFC, I don't care what rank you're in, I think you have to stay ready year round, right? Because opportunities like this. Now, as far as rankings go, it wasn't a huge step up for Jalen. I imagine he does move up a couple of ranking positions, but I think as far as rankings, it didn't do much for him because he was ranked 12 and Bobby Green was ranked 13. I think this was just a fight that UFC said, and I think I said this in the last podcast too, but which is the fight that UFC said, all right, well, we don't want to have Bobby Green not fight. Let's give Jalen a chance, and they did it. No particular reason. I think this fight had no particular reason. It wasn't a unranked guy fighting, trying to break into the top 15. It wasn't none of that stuff. It wasn't a title contender fight. It wasn't none of that stuff. So Jalen, all he did was really boost up his name by saying, "Hey, I'm that dog. I'm willing to take short notice fights." He probably got compensated well for it. I think the UFC does a good job at sometimes compensating guys really well if they're taking short notice fights. But it was a good fight for him to take. It was a little risky, but to get the dub in the way that he did, it's amazing for him, right? It's amazing because now he's solidifying himself as someone in the top 10, even top 5, really. I mean, he had that war against Hooker back a couple months ago, earlier in the year, and that was a war. That was a fight that it could have gone either way. It could have been a split. It was a split actually, but it could have gone either way. I'm not mad about Hooker getting the dub because I thought Hooker needed a dub bad. Another of those guys that has been on a slippery slope of losing, winning, losing, losing, winning. Some of those guys really need to win, and Hooker was that guy back in that day. So I was glad that he got the win, but Jalen's performance that day was also amazing. Both guys were gassed out at the end of the fight, which was a 3-round fight. It wasn't a 3-round. I think it was 3 rounds. But both guys were gassed out. Jalen got the dub, and now Jalen got the dub against Bobby Green. Another thing to point out about this fight was the ref stopping the fight way later. I mean, Bobby Green was completely out, completely knocked out, and Jalen landed like 4 more punches after that, hammer fist punches. There was just, and not hammer fist, but when you're hitting someone, when you're punching someone in the face, and it's just canvas, face, fist, that's not good, bro. That is not good. I don't care who you are. That's not good. That's not good on its own. And now, if the guy is already knocked out and you hit him like that 3-4 more times, that's not good, bro. That's not good. Bobby Green luckily got up really fast. He did look a little bit dazed, but he's a vet also, so he's probably been there a bunch of times. But it's one of those guys, bro. Bobby Green, I think he just needs a little bit more discipline, bro. I think like he said, like I was saying, sorry, I completely went off a limb, but like he was saying in his interviews, he wasn't really preparing as much for Jalen, or I think in general he doesn't prepare as much. I think he kind of goes in there and kind of hopes for the best. He's a good striker, amazing striker, and amazing defense too. He has like the Mayweather role that Mayweather does so fucking good. Bobby Green does that really well as well. Obviously not at the level of Mayweather because obviously he got knocked the fuck out. But it's one of those things that he does really well. Good striking, good defense. But unfortunately, Jalen Turner fucking cut through that defense like a hot butter knife, bro. It was a good performance for Jalen. Shout out to him. And that division is also getting a little bit stacked now that we also had the main event. But that division is also stacked. So, I don't know, maybe he can fight someone a little bit more ranked. So, Dan Hooker's 9. Maybe not. He said he wanted the Dan Hooker fight. I don't know. I would like him to see someone like a Fiziev or a Gaethje. I think he called that Gaethje, actually. Or no, Armin called that Gaethje, sorry. But someone like a Gage, no, Gage is too high. Sorry. Chandler can do that. So Fiziev, I think Fiziev is a good fight, or Armin also. I think that would be a great fight too against Armin. Now that they both got amazing dubs on this, actually, that works out perfect because they both fought at the same time, so they both would be ready for another UFC in a couple of maybe like March, April, May. They can fight again and they can fight each other. I think Jalen Turner and Armin makes perfect sense for a top 5 break-in. Armin, I think, already broke into the top 5 when he defeated Dariush because Dariush was top 4. So now it could be like, okay, who really gets a top 5, right? So Armin, I don't think Armin's ready for a Gaethje, honestly. He called that Gaethje, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, shout out for Jalen. I want to see him fight someone in the top 5, top 7 of the division. So yeah, hopefully that happens. And again, I think a Rafael Fiziev, for me, I think that'll be a good fight against Jalen Turner. Good step up, right? Usually it usually goes two or three ways, right? Like, if the UFC knows a guy's marketable and is famous, popular, someone like a Sean O'Malley, he's not going to be fighting 10 and then 7 and then 5 and then 3 and then championship. No, he's not going to do that. They boosted him up. He went and fought the number 2 guy, which was Peter Yan at the time, and then he got a title fight. So usually when you do that, you know a guy's marketable and you know he's going to bring the company a lot of money. Jalen is popular, but he's obviously not as popular as someone like a O'Malley or anyone like that. So for him, I think he does take a little bit of a slower route of like, okay, now you're fighting. You defeated number 13. You're 12 right now. That might change tomorrow. But now, all right, now let's do 7. And then after 7, we'll do 5 or 4, right? And then 3 or 2, and then you'll be in the title shot. So I'll give Jalen a couple of years more, maybe 2-3 years, and then he'll be right there in that division, bro. Especially because I feel like a lot of these guys in this division are also in the last-ish legs of their career, someone like a Poirier or like a Dariush also. So once those guys are gone, those rankings are going to go up. So I think it's going to be great for Jalen. Young contender, super exciting guy, great striker. So props to him, man, for getting that dub. Now we have the main event of the evening. Beneil Dariush against Arman Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan? Sometimes with this European last names, I don't know if I should say them with a Spanish accent. Like, my Spanish was to say Tsarukyan, which sounds like a Hadouken. But I think in English it's someone like Tsarukyan or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, it was a good fight while it lasted. Obviously, round 1, KO, nasty KO by Armin to boost them up. And Beneil is one of those guys, bro, that Beneil, I said it last time too in my last episode. If you haven't watched that, check it out. Beneil is one of those guys that he was completely undefeated. The only loss he had, at least recently, was against Charles Oliveira, who's obviously one of the lightweight goats, in my opinion. You can have your opinion, you can have your Khabibs and your You can have your Khabibs and your Islams. Fuck those guys. Okay, I'm not saying fuck those guys, but the level of excitement that you get when you watch a Charles fight is not even close, bro. He is such an exciting fighter, such a great fighter, and it's I think it's, to me, is one of the lightweight goats. I think it's him, and then maybe someone like a Jose Aldo or a Connor. Then you can put Khabib in there. Connor, I know what you're saying. I know what you're thinking. Connor, lightweight goat. Come on, all right, but it's my opinion. Again, go down in the comments, bro. Let me know how you feel about that. But yeah, it was a great win for Armin. By the way, I didn't know this until after the fight, but Armin already fought Islam Makhachev a couple years back, and I rewatched the fight, and he did really good against Islam back in the day, or not back in the day, but when Islam was coming up as a contender, right? Obviously, everyone knew him as Khabib's little brother, and obviously amazing grappling too, just like Khabib. So no one really showed him anything in grappling, right? Until he fought this guy. Armin, for round 1 and 2, he did really good. And he even took Islam down 2 or 3 times. And, that was years ago. Now that he's kind of have time to kind of, go back to the drawing board and kind of reinvent himself, and now he's broke into the top 5. That will be also a really, really interesting fight. But again, it's one of those guys that, before this fight, I never heard much about him, right? I've heard about Dariush a bunch. A little bit more of a marketable guy, but also not super marketable at all, which is also, right before the fight started, I was watching the fight with a bunch of buddies, and I asked my buddy, who also knows a lot about UFC. I've been thinking about maybe getting him on here, but I asked my buddy, do you think Beneil is ever going to get a title shot, right? At least close to a title shot again. He fought Charles. That was for the number 1 contender, and he lost, right? Do you think he's ever going to get a title shot? And he said no, and I agree. And before the fight even started, so he hadn't gotten knocked out at this point, but we both agree that he's just not marketable, right? And he even does the mistake of saying that he will fight everybody before he even gets to a title fight, right? I think he said that before he fought Charles, and I think there was talks of him also fighting Islam. He was going to fight Islam before Islam was champ, but he got injured. I don't know. I don't remember which one that was. Oh yeah, I think it was when Islam fought Bobby Green. I think that was supposed to be Dariush, if I'm not mistaken. And Bobby Green, you can see that it was a short notice, but Bobby Green is also one of those guys that's a little bit more marketable. He's got some swag. He dresses up nice. He's got the beard. It's a little bit more marketable. I think he's not as marketable, obviously, as someone like Oliveira. But now we're getting into a slippery slope conversation of like, does being popular make you go up in the rankings? No, it does not. Don't think that I'm saying that. What I'm saying is when you're good and you're marketable, that definitely helps you go up in the rankings for sure. We've seen it. And I've talked about this plenty of times in this pod. It just works out that way. It's just the way it is, Like I said, someone like a Dariush has to fight 10 times before he ever gets a title shot. And someone like a Sean O'Malley, or like if you want to stay in his division, like a Charles Oliveira, who had a huge hype behind him because of Khabib, they boosted the guy. They really boosted Islam, if you want to talk about that. Islam didn't fight anybody in the top 10 before he was champion. I mean, it was kind of crazy, really. He fought Bobby Green, and then he got a title shot, I think, which is mind-blowing. But, it is the way it is. But it helps. Being marketable definitely helps when you are also good. If you are marketable, but you're not good, that's when things fall apart. If you talk a bunch of shit and you lose, it's a bad look. But then it can be the opposite of you being really fucking good and not marketable, which I think was the case of Dariush. So you just go through more struggle, bro. You go through literally every single fucking contender there is before you even get close to a title shot, bro. And he got there. He got close. He got there. If he would have defeated Charles, he's next, right? If he defeats Charles, he's next for a championship. Obviously, that did not happen. So, Armin now, if I have to guess, is in the top 5. What's next for him? I think someone like Jalen Turner would make a lot of sense. But if you're talking about if you're looking through the eyes of Jalen Turner, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because Armin now is going to be top 5, and Jalen Turner is top 10. So if you look at it through the eyes of Jalen Turner's team, it makes sense, all right? I would be calling him out all day long, right? Like, hey, we both fought on the same card. We both had great knockouts. And it works out that you guys fought at the same time, so now you'll be ready for our next fight, right? At the same time. Timing is impeccable on that. But if you're looking through it in the eyes of Armin and his team and his eyes, maybe he's not looking to fight a guy behind him in the rankings. Maybe he's looking for, again, someone like a Gagey or someone like a Gamrod. I think that that would be a good couple of fights for him. Yeah, I think if I had to guess, I give Jalen Turner, I give him Fiziev. And if I had to guess, I give Armin a Gagey. Or a Poirier. I think Poirier would be good. Or now that Dariush lost, I think Poirier makes a lot of sense also for Dariush because both in the top 5 and both coming off of a loss. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Someone like a Gagey, he's there and he's available. I just don't think they're gonna. I think the UFC likes Gagey a lot, and he's super marketable guy as well. I think they're gonna wait for him to give him a title shot after Charles. If Charles and Islam fight, hopefully it's. I think, in my prediction, and again, if you want to see my predictions for UFC 300, you can go back to the last pod. I think they're gonna do that in UFC 300. Islam and Charles. I think it's the co-main for Conor and Chandler, which is weird because Conor and Chandler would not be for a title shot, but you also cannot have Conor be the co-main. Islam and Charles, they're absolutely their main event stars, but not at Conor's level, right? And then, bro. Hold on. If Conor wins against Chandler, right, he's back in lightweight rankings. Or, if they fight at welterweight, I don't know what weight class you're going to fight at, but assuming it's at lightweight, which, if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said absolutely not. Conor is not fighting nowhere near lightweight, but I think he's dropped some weight. I think he's better now as far as his injuries, so I think he's, doing, obviously, more training. I think he's dropped some weight. He definitely slimmed down a little bit compared to how he was, at this time. Even last year, he looked like a fucking middleweight. Like, it's insane. Now, a lightweight, I think he could make lightweight, especially, obviously, if he gets to camp and, drops weight and then makes the cut. He definitely can fight at lightweight, and then he'll be a big lightweight. If anything, it's an advantage. Because now he'll be a bigger lightweight than he was before. Before, he was always between featherweight and lightweight, and then he fought Nate Diaz at welterweight. Or did they fight? Yeah, I think they fought at welterweight, right? But I think now, if he fights at lightweight and defeats Chandler, now you can look at, okay, who wins versus Islam and Charles? And Conor could be next for that, right? And I know I just said Gagey, right? But if you're the UFC and you're Dana White and, now you have Conor, Gagey, who would you give the next title fight to? Well, it's tough because Gagey really, I don't want to see Gagey against Poirier again. Like, I don't want to see Gagey Chandler again. I mean, I would, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Other than that, no one makes sense for Gaethje. Maybe what you do is you have Conor Chandler, right? Charles, Islam. Whoever wins between Conor and Chandler fights for the title against either Charles or Islam. And then you have a title, you have a number one fight, a title contender fight between Gaethje and Arman. UFC, give me my 10 fucking percent, dude. I just mapped out your whole lightweight, I just mapped out your whole lightweight division for the next year, bro. You're welcome. Or not the whole lightweight division, but the top five, at least the top five, right? And then I wouldn't mind seeing a Dariush against the Poirier. Again, another good fight right there. Bro, I'm just rolling all cylinders today. These fights make a lot of sense that I'm talking to right now. And again, please let me know how you feel about that. Poirier and Dariush make sense. Both coming off of a loss, both in the top five. Makes perfect sense. I don't think you have to backtrack Dariush as much. Fight someone in the top 15 now, I don't think that's good. I think you give Poirier Dariush. Gaethje waits for the Gaethje fights Arman, but after Conor and Islam, right? And then Conor and Chandler and Islam and Charles. And then those four gentlemen, obviously, whoever fights kind of switch, right? If Conor defeats Chandler and let's say Charles defeats Islam, now you have Conor against Charles for the belt, which I would love that fight. I would absolutely fucking love that fight. Talk about a super fight, but also for my own personal beliefs and my own personal favorite athletes, it's them too. If you ask me right now, who's your top two favorite fighters ever in the UFC, I would say Conor and then Charles. And that's it. And then after that, to me at least, I'm talking favorite. I'm not talking skill-wise. I'm not talking GOAT. I'm talking my favorite fighters that I like to watch fight, right? I have Conor, I have Charles, I have John Jones. Those are my top three that I like to fight. Not that I like to see fight, not GOATs, because if you're talking GOAT, now that switches, and I put John Jones at the top, and then obviously those two guys drop a little lower. I have John Jones, Anderson Silva, GSP. I throw Conor in there as well, not the top 4 or 5, but probably Conor in the top like 6 or 7, because I would have a lot of double champs, and then Khabib is nowhere near my list, so fuck you. But I think that lightweight division is coming back to life. It was definitely clogged up for a little bit, Charles absolutely defeating everyone, and then Charles and Islam, and then Charles got injured, so there was not a real contender. But then Gaethje defeated Poirier, and then Chandler hasn't fought in like a year and a half or longer than that. So I think this division is coming back to life. That's why I want Conor and Chandler at lightweight, because it would fire up this division again. This is what this division needs. Welterweight doesn't need that. Welterweight has amazing fights right now, amazing fighters. You have Leon Colby, you have Kamaru still there in the conversation, you have Bilal, Burns, you have Khamzat, who might, Khamzat, I don't think Khamzat will be welterweight. Khamzat, I think, is mainly now just middleweight. But you have some good names there, bro. You have Ian Gary, who's fought. You have Sean Brady, who just won. Ian Gary is going to fight. Sean Brady just fought. Stephen Thompson is going to fight as well here pretty soon. That will be an amazing fight. I think Stephen Thompson is fighting Shafkat, right? If I'm not mistaken. Ian Gary also will be a good fight against Stephen Thompson. That would be a great fight. I know he called him out last time he fought, but it is what it is. They did not give him that fight, indeed. which is kind of crazy because Ian's ranked number 10 and Wonder Boy's ranked 6. So I don't think it was a crazy leap, but I think maybe Wonder Boy was already booked. I don't know why they didn't do that fight. I think that would have done massive numbers, especially with what's been going on. Especially with what's been going on with Ian Gary. I think now he would be a little bit of a bigger pay-per-view sell, with all this shit that's been happening. And he himself is an okay trash talker. He's not that good, but he's marketable. He's a great-looking dude. And probably going to be a little bit more famous in Europe now, I think. Or, if he gets a couple more dubs. But earlier in his career, he was kind of, doing the whole Conor thing. And I don't think that works out that good. I think if you're copying another fighter that was popular, bad luck. But yeah, that's what's next for those gentlemen. And again, let me know if I'm making sense. Does that sound okay to you guys? Does that sound terrible? Is it not ideal? Is it stupid what I'm saying? Please let me know. I want to know. I want to know how you guys feel about what I said. All those fight predictions that I made that are happening, I come from a place of that makes sense. I look at what the UFC has done before, what makes a lot of sense, fighters that are ready or not ready, are healthy or not healthy, are they booked or are they not booked. And this, I think the way I laid out the top 5 lightweight division for the next year makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So UFC, please, please, please hire me for a matchmaking position because I'm a savage. Sorry, I'm not a savage. I apologize for that. But that, I think, lays it out for the next year as far as lightweight goes. It's an interesting division, to say the least. Like I said, it is coming back to life, especially if Conor fights Chandler on that. So, boom, there it is. And that's my breakdown of the UFC Fight Night that we had. Again, amazing fight night. I wish almost every fight night was like that. And again, I mentioned this also in the last pod, but I'm not crazy on fight nights. Like, I watch some of them if there's a big name, obviously. And when I saw this card, I was like, holy shit. If you would have thrown one title shot at the end of this fight, like, so if you would have made Dariush the co-main and then throw a title fight, even like a women's title fight or something, this would have been a perfect numbered pay-per-view UFC, But, obviously, all the numbered pay-per-views are already booked until March. And we don't know yet about UFC 300, but we'll find out. We will find out. And when we find out, I think we'll find out at 298. I think when Colby and Leon fight, I think that's when we're going to find out exactly who is going to be fighting in UFC 300. I think they're going to make that announcement on that during that pay-per-view. Maybe after. I don't know. But thank you guys for tuning into this pod. Once again, I appreciate you all for watching, for listening. And please, please, please let me know if what I'm saying is making some type of sense to you guys. Like, do you think I'm correct? Do you think I'm wrong? Please let me know. If you disagree with me, please let me know. I want to know. So, thank you guys. Catch you all on the next one. Peace.